Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Lurie. I want to thank you for joining us today for our Ask the Experts. And I have lots of experts here to discuss securing endpoints with Defender and Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Before we get started answering all of your questions, I see they're already starting to come in, so I'm going to make this really quick. I do want to go through a couple little ground rules first. So first, how to engage. You're going to see you have a chat window. This is Microsoft Teams. So there's a chat window there. So just type in your questions. Some of these questions will be answered live on the screen with our experts, and some of these questions will be answered right there in the chat window from other experts we have behind the scenes. And the questions are going to appear to everyone. So, and we're going to get to this in a second, but we'll just try to be nice to everybody here. Upvote your questions. So you can actually like questions as well. And again, some of these questions we'll answer verbally, and some of these questions we'll just do in text. This session is recorded, not maybe, it actually is recorded. So again, please be nice human beings to one another. And our code of conduct is here on the slide. It's also there in the chat window. So make sure you do view that. All right, so again, my name is Joe Lurie. I'm on the Microsoft 365 product management team. I'm the least important person on this panel here. So we're going to introduce ourselves in the order of the panel, in the order of the slide here. So if my experts can give us your name, a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. I guess I'll go first because I'm the first one on the slide with this tight framed picture. So thanks, Joe. Hi guys, my name is Matt Call. I'm a program manager on the Endpoint Manager team. My team works on endpoint security and device configuration, policy, compliance. I specifically work on endpoint security in Windows and all of the our integrations with Defender ATP or Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, as you guys should be calling it now. So that's me. So Per, you want to go next?
My name is Per Larsen. I'm a program manager in the Endpoint Manager product group, and I help customers onboard and adopt our product and feed insight back to the rest of the engineering team, just like Matt, on where customers want the changes and what is not working for them and what is working.
All right, and my name is Sanesh Vig. I'm part of Microsoft Endpoint Manager team. And just like Per and Matt, I work with large strategic customers, make sure that they love the product, they give us feedback, take that feedback back to my peers in the engineering to see how we can continue to innovate and bring those feedbacks as in terms of features and make the product better. So looking forward to answering your questions today.
Thanks, Nash. And Yuji-san.
Hi. Hi everyone, my name is Yuji. I'm a program manager in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint team, and my role is to help customer deployment and also gain the insights from customer directly and feedback to the product team. Yep, that's it.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to actually start right into these questions. And a very general question first, Matt. I'm going to ask you this, and this is from David. And he actually started with, I guess, a very general question. We have 300 users working from home on Windows 10. And this is why I'm starting with this one, because for the last year, we've been working from home, and this has really been coming up a lot. So we have 300 users working from home on Windows 10. How do we start to secure them between mobile, PC, et cetera? How do we secure our home workers?
Yeah, so great question, Joe. I mean, our product suite is really focused on security, and security is a primary pillar of the IT world, right? So often we're focused on these tactical tasks of patching and deploying apps and of enabling business users to store and access their data, but really. All of those sort of things tie into the one pillar of security, or the one pillar of device management. So, for us, we really see this as a path, one single path to first, get underneath device management some way, somehow. That means get your devices enrolled in either Intune or via our configuration manager plane, or some control plane where you have the ability to take action on these devices. And then securing these devices in such a way that allows your end users to stay productive, but also allows you to have that sort of risk mitigation or that, I would say, that insight you need into the device to protect the enterprise, right? And we give you some great tools to do that. If you're just starting out with management, we have some security baselines built into the console that have, Microsoft recommended settings, so on and so forth, that'll allow you to sort of get off the ground quickly. And then as you start moving through your phases or your testing process, you can adjust those to fit your organization's needs. In addition to security baselines and sort of what we have there, we have great integrations with our friends over in what I call Defenderland or Defender for Endpoint, where we allow integrations. So, if you start deploying Defender for Endpoint to those devices, we have integrations that allow us to take action on those devices when they become risky or become vulnerable. So that's another important integration point that you should probably look at. And then the third one, and probably the most important, is all of these things can tie into something that we have in our portfolio across teams called Conditional Access, right? So starting to not only deploy settings to those devices and enforcing settings on those devices, but as you move towards what we call the Zero Trust model, and we have great sessions coming up on that, I think, later today, as you start to move towards a Zero Trust model, it's important that you don't just deploy settings to devices. It's important that you make the device attest to receiving those configurations and attest to being in a secure state. And that's where we can start using compliance policy and Intune, as well as conditional access, to start gating devices based on their compliance. So that's sort of, I'll call it a primer. That question, I could probably spend the entire half hour talking about it. But if you need any help from the Microsoft team, I know I speak for all 140,000 of us when I say that we're here for you. So make sure you reach out reach out to a Microsoft contact, your account team, or just anybody on social media if you have any questions, comments, concerns about what you're doing, and we'll help get you in the right direction.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. You're right. It's a conversation that we could have that could go on and take up this entire time slot. So thanks. Yuji, I have a question about MDE attach. Can I ask you this question?
Yes.
What's that?
Yeah. Right now we're in the planning a roadmap to have a management of all the devices for the Defender for Endpoint management devices. But yeah, currently I don't think we have a concrete schedule to publish, but it'll be coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just comment there. I mean, we're working on a bunch of new integrations with Defender. We're not ready to share any of those yet. But when we are, our team here at Ignite, as well as, our customer base, will be informed about that.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Yuji. And thanks, Emil, for that question. I'm sorry we can't really get into a big discussion about that at this point, and hopefully we'll be able to soon. We also have a question about iOS Defender app and using VPN. Is this something that we can use maybe with Microsoft Tunnel? Yuji, can you answer about iOS Defender?
Yeah, I think we just published the blog today about the we plan to integrate both Microsoft Tunnel and the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, iOS and Android. It'll be coming. Right now it's kind of separated, but it'll be one endpoint solution.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I know Microsoft Tunnel, we have a session on if you go and we can put this link in the dashboard. If you go to aka.ms Video Hub Mem, there's a session on using MS Tunnel and Defender. So that should actually help you as well. So Sebastian has a question: when deploying Defender ATP for endpoints via Endpoint Manager, should we choose the option of all users or all computers? Can we do both? How can we be sure? And
is that a question? Yeah, I can take it up. So the recommendations, this is a common question that we get for all the policies when we are pushing policies through Microsoft Endpoint Manager, is should I push it, or should I target it to the user group, or should I target it to the device group? It's a kind of similar thing when we are trying to attach the devices to MDE. Our general guidance to customers is, if a policy needs to go to a device, doesn't matter who uses that device, then the policy should be attached to the device, should be targeted to the device. However, if the policy has to go at a user level because it is applicable only to the user, or it doesn't matter where the user, the policy has to follow the identity. Then it is applied to the user. In this case, while there is no silver bullet that I can give you on right now, but recommendation is that when we are talking about MDE, attaching the clients to MDE, we always talk about attaching onboarding policy to be assigned to the devices, all devices, because it doesn't matter who use the device should get the policy and it should get uploaded or onboarded into MDE.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sanesh. We have a question here from...
There was the question also around using all users and all devices, because what we see with customers also is they are starting with a smaller pilot and doing a custom device group to deploy the policies and the onboarding first before they're going all in with all of their estate.
It's a good tie into this next question where I see from DLT Murphy, what's the best way of implementing policies that are repeated across the endpoint, baselines, device config? So how do you see the customers doing that right now?
That is depending on the customer. So if the customer's ready, they should use the security baseline we have. And then they can, in addition to that, use custom policies to set additional settings that they want. If they're not ready to do the security baseline, they can create their own policy set and apply it to the devices. There's no right and wrong in this one, but if you're already using a security baseline on-premise, it's likely that you can adopt the one we have in the cloud as well. But again, try to do some testing and due diligence, and be aware that you can create conflicts for yourself if you're using both the security baseline and different policy types. And we will do reporting within the MEM portal if you are creating a conflict for yourself.
Great, thanks for that explanation too. We have another question from Emil, and I see that Antonio is actually answering it, but I'd actually like to see it answered on camera as well. When the new Defender for Endpoint reports are available, and I know these are just starting to really come out and to become available, will they be customizable? Yuji, can you talk about that?
Oh, is that the one, the reporting in Defender for Endpoint portal? Is that the ask, or?
The way it's worded, when the new Defender for Endpoint reports are available, can we customize the reports ourselves?
I don't think we have done that yet. I don't think we can info that for now. Sorry.
Oh, no problem at all.
Joe,
yep.
Do you mind if I chime in?
Yeah.
No, go right ahead.
Traditionally, in terms of reports, we tend not to allow those reports to be customizable. What we do to ensure that we extend that.
Antonio, you can go ahead and turn on your camera as well.
I think I did.
Okay.
Anyways, what we do in order to extend that capability for customers to actually customize the reporting and also to tie with other sources of data is really expanding as much as we can the API ecosystem. So as a customer, you have all of the ability to use things like our Defender for Endpoint APIs, advanced hunting, and bridge that with whatever reporting platform you have, from Power BI to other third-party ones. Thank you.
Thanks for popping on to answer that. I appreciate that.
Joe, one question we also get around this one is about reporting honoring scope tags, and the new antivirus and the anti-malware reports and the firewall report is honoring scope tags. So if you have a specific scope tags, let's say to country or department and so on, you can do some kind of customization depending on who is actually the receiver of the report. So we have some options, but yes, they're limited.
All right, thanks so much. I'm looking at a question, Matt. I'm going to come to you, and please let me know if someone else will be answering it. This is from Anantha. May I know when we can expect we will be able to configure the Defender for Endpoint policies for the MEM console? Currently, it's all over the place. So when will we be kind of putting that in a single console?
The Defender for Endpoint for MEM policy. So what I hear, so there's two facets to this, security management and as well as what we call endpoint detection and response onboarding, or EDR onboarding, which is the actual act of deploying Defender for Endpoint. So I'll take those questions in two pillars because that's how I understand them. The first is Endpoint Manager is our consolidated console for security management. It will be that way for as long as I'm on the team, probably. That's where we envision people configuring and managing security policy. We have a blade in the Endpoint Manager console called Endpoint Security, which is I'll call it a curated blade that allows organizations, security admins, to go in and manage, I'll call them the Defender settings, right? But they're really more than that. We'll call them the Defender adjacent and Defender settings via a single console. So if you go into that console, you'll see workload breakout. So, antivirus, firewall, disk encryption, account protection, so on and so forth, all in that console. You'll be able to create policies based on those workloads and deploy them out via Endpoint Manager in a simplified console. So that's the first answer to that question, and that's where we're going to standardize. I think we have good alignment from our friends in Defenderland on that one, as we work with them very frequently. The second part of the question around how do I deploy Defender for Endpoint, it's sort of all over the place. That's fair. I would say that we've consolidated all of those deployment mechanisms into the Endpoint Security console. So there's if I'm deploying Defender for Endpoint itself, I can do a majority of that, pretty soon all of that, through the Endpoint Security console. You'll notice in that console there's an endpoint detection response blade. I can go ahead and create a policy in that blade for Windows today. For Mac OS, we have aspirations to consolidate it there as well. And then for the other platforms, it gets a little bit tricky because we need an app. But stick with me for a second. When I go into that console, I can go in and I can create a policy that says onboard this device to Windows Defender for Endpoint or Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And what will happen there is if the device is managed either by Configuration Manager or by Endpoint Manager in the cloud or Intune, as you all probably know it today, that device will complete onboarding per that policy. It's a simple policy. If you have our integration turned on, we do all the onboarding blob stuff for you. You really just need to set two settings and deploy the policy out. So that's sort of our vision, and I think that over the next little bit, we'll work to consolidate all the other configuration mechanisms there. I mean, to be transparent, the Defender team is moving at the speed of light, and the Endpoint Manager team is doing its best to make sure we have day zero support, but it takes time. So if you have any feedback or any specific things that you'd like to see consolidated that aren't consolidated today, feel free to put those in the chat. Email Joe personally, he loves that. Whatever we can do to get that feedback, we really thrive on that feedback and make sure we're doing the right thing. But with building any single console, there's always going to be scenarios where things don't make sense to put in, or they don't make sense to some. And if we're doing something that doesn't make sense, we want to hear about that.
Thanks. And my email address is mattcall@. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, fine.
And then there's a question here, maybe not so much just Defender, but Marcelo asked, what's the main difference from Defender for Endpoint to the native Windows 10 security solutions? So we have the Defender antivirus, and we have Application Guard, and some of those other solutions. What's the main difference, Defender for Endpoint to the native solutions?
Basically, the Defender for Endpoint is an EDR solution, and the rest is also called Microsoft Defender, and you can configure all of those from within the MEM portal with policies. You can also do that locally on the device, but in an enterprise, we will always advise you to use the tool, and our tool is Intune to configure this one.
Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
Yeah, Microsoft Endpoint. Yeah.
It's funny, and you mentioned that ATP or Defender for Endpoint is an EDR solution. Can you talk about that a little bit? What exactly is that EDR solution for anyone that's just still new to this?
I can take that.
Just to unacronym that, so you know what we're talking about.
actually think that Antonio is better equipped to answer that question, as he's working most likely in that product.
Yep, I can answer that. So Defender for Endpoint is mainly a suite. It's not a single product. It's not only EDR, it's not only APP. Yes, we have built-in components that obviously are packaged into Windows because that's our OS and that's how we build security from the ground up. But when we think about Defender for Endpoint, that's actually the convergence of the EPP controls, the EDR controls, together with the TVM, again, threat and vulnerability management, threat analytics. And specifically on the EDR, we're talking about endpoint detection and response. So that's a post-breach capability where through the cyber telemetry that we collect through your endpoints into your tenant, we then apply our threat intelligence detection logic on top of that data to alert you on possible breaches. And then obviously having automated response capabilities and auto containment capabilities, and together with the prevention layers at the box at the OS level, ensuring that you contain and you then further prevent or future prevent that same possible breach. Hopefully that explains.
It does. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We have a question about Mac OS. Before we go on camera, if someone could just raise their hand, let me know who can answer a Mac OS question. Any recommendation to allow system extensions for Mac OS? Do we have someone? I'm not sure if we have.
I can take that one also if you want.
I'm not sure if we have an expert on camera. If we should ask Antonio to come back on. So the question from Anonymous specifically is: any recommendations to allow system extensions for Mac OS with regard to Defender?
So we have that instruction for the system extensions. And by the way, recently Apple did a change where they prevented third parties to actually use kernel extensions. So we had to migrate our components into the system extension level. And basically through the configuration that you have, whether that is through, again, Defender for, Endpoint Manager, or even a manual configuration, or using a third-party management plane, we have those instructions on using the specific JSON files with the right configurations to enable those system extensions while doing the deployment of the solution.
Thanks so much for answering that and coming on screen all these as many times as you have. We have a question also from Anonymous. I'm guessing it's a different Anonymous, although it could be the same. Can we customize Intune reports to get endpoint serial numbers and model? So Matt, when we look at just normal Intune reports, can we customize those to get more information about the endpoints?
Yeah, I mean, so today we have a distinct data set. It's something we've been looking at for a while. Specifically our customers coming from a very customizable, extensible solution like Configuration Manager typically ask for this. We do our best to extend the data set, but the data set that's there today is the data set that we have. We were looking at ways in the future to make that better. Just to give some context on the problem, in the Configuration Manager world or Configuration Manager land, because I like it when everybody lives in lands. So in the Configuration Manager land, you're housing your data on-prem. Which is great. We give you the ability to extend your hardware inventory and software inventory and reporting schema however you'd like. I shouldn't say however you like, within certain boundaries, which allow you to collect virtually any property from a device. When we get up to the cloud management level, this becomes an issue of scale and an issue of data, right? If we allowed everybody to just collect anything they wanted to, it becomes an uncontrollable scale problem. So we're looking at ways, I don't have anything to share and I don't have anything to commit, but we're looking at ways to extend that in the future. But today you have the properties that are there. I believe serial numbers member probably in the Graph API. I know that make and model is a member in Graph API. So I think all of that stuff is there. I think it might even be in the console. I'm drawing a blank at this moment. We have a lot of that there. If you have any questions about where to find that data or how you might use it, I'm happy to provide some additional data on the schema, where stuff is, and how you might use it to do things like, build dynamic groups for the limited data that's in Azure AD and so on and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense. And that's sort of a non-answer. It's something we get all the time, and we want to make it better. If you have any specific data that's missing, that you're like, hey, we really need X, Y, or Z, giving us that feedback will maybe make it so we can start inventorying that stuff for everybody if it's a limited data set.
Thanks so much. And Tom
Yeah.
in the chat window actually says that if there's an interest for additional device information, that he's willing to provide an example script that he uses for using Azure storage tables. So reach out to Tom Van Beest in the chat window for more information on that. And Yuji, I thought I saw a question earlier in the chat window, and I can't find it right now, but I do know it has something to do with app protection policies and using Defender. So the app protection policies that we use for Android and iOS when coming in, protecting our applications on those devices, can we use Defender for Endpoint on like Android and iOS?
Yeah, we just announced that we support the MAM, MAM and MD integration recently. So,
Okay,
you want to add something?
No, I think that was a question, using app protection policies with app protection policies and MAM, mobile application management, being the same thing today. Can we use Defender for Endpoint as part of the app protection policy? Again, I can't find the question now. I thought I saw it and I scanned it earlier. So I don't have the exact wording.
Yeah, true. We now support it to the app protection policy on the iOS and Android. So you can configure it and use that with MAM.
Yeah, give a little bit more context on that, Joe. Like our capability here is to add the risk score mechanism, right? To Savri on my team did a lot of work with our friends in Defenderland on this. We now have the ability, like Yuji-san said, to move the risk score to MAM devices. Mobile application management, that's where you manage just the app on the device and not the whole device, to add a launch condition that allows you to check risk score at app launch and take a number of actions depending on the risk score that comes up. So it's a big step forward for us, specifically in the Defender space. If you have any feedback on that, I know we'd love that. So thank you. Sorry, Yuji, I just want to give a little bit more context.
Thanks, Matt. I think that.
Yeah, thanks for both of you for answering that. And there's a question here about settings catalog, and I know, Matt, you like to talk about that as well. Andreas asked, would you recommend to take the new preview device configuration session catalog way and just copy over a set of policies from security recommendations, for example?
Copy over a set of policies. So what I hear is, should I use settings catalog in production? I think we're okay with that. I think that's a good path forward. I would just say two things. First thing I would say is settings catalog has a limited number of settings that we want to release today in it. This has been pointed out to us in several forums that there are some settings missing. To put an idea, to put some context around it, we have around 2,000 settings in the catalog today. We have aspirations to add upwards of 7,000. Those 7,000, those 5,000, if my math's right, it's early in the morning, are going through approval processes right now. We just don't release stuff. We need to test to make sure each setting does what it's supposed to do and make sure everything's good and it gets approved. So I would probably hold off on migrating configurations right now unless you find everything that's there, because we'll be adding additional settings in the future that'll probably match your configurations. And with the work that we've recently done to whitelist a bunch of ADMX stuff, or our partners in the Windows team have done, we should virtually eliminate the GPO gap that exists today between GPO and MDM policy sets, right? So I think in the future, we're going to have a really good story. Settings catalog is our first sort of glimpse into that unified catalog or that unified settings platform, which enables all these great scenarios. But today, I think our ask would be get some settings catalog policy deployed in your enterprise. Look to use it in place of custom OMA URI where possible. Use it to move forward there and make things easier. In terms of just migrating policy, I mean, if you find everything is there that you need for your policy, sure, feel free. But for us, I think we're going to expose more surface in the future and more settings in the future. So your migration might get unblocked or substantially easier once we expand that setting set, which should happen in the next 3 to 6 months. So. Does that make sense, Joe? Am I making sense or am I rambling? I think I'm getting the wrap it up clock here. But yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it makes perfect sense, and I think maybe you had too much coffee right before this session.
No, it hasn't kicked in yet, man. It hasn't kicked in yet, but happy to answer questions always.
So again, I want to thank everyone that joined us today. So Per, Sanesh, Yuji, Matt, Kathy, and everyone and Antonio, and everyone on the back end. And of course, all of you for joining us today. I know for some of you, I should have asked this earlier, how many of you are coming from the West Coast? So we know what your time zones are. So thank you so much for joining us. And we have some resources for you as well. So we're going to pop back over to the PowerPoint deck here. Oh, it looks like I need to add a link here. So we'll add that into the security window, but the windows at Ignite, Endpoint Manager at Ignite, and follow MS Intune and MS Threat Protect as well on Twitter for everything that we talked about is coming soon. Follow us on Twitter and you'll know exactly when that stuff's available. So thanks everyone and enjoy the rest of Ignite.